Alright, what's up guys, Capital Coasters here, and welcome back to another video, and today I'll be bringing you guys another countdown. Today I'll be bringing you guys my top 10 roller coasters at Carowinds. Now, I was here pretty recently on August 10th through the 12th, and I rode every coaster here except for the Wilderness Run kiddie coaster, so I got 12 credits. This actually wasn't my first trip there. I did go back there in 2017, but I didn't get every credit I have now. But today I'll be giving my top 10 roller coasters at the park. And Carowinds definitely has a pretty great lineup of coasters. They have a good variety, some good quality rides, and just a good quantity of coasters. So today I'll be giving my top 10 personal favorite coasters of the park, so let's just get right into it. Alright, so starting off at the number 10 spot is Carolina GOLDRUSHER, which is the air mine train at the park that actually opened with the park back in 1973. It's definitely my favorite out of the two mine trains I've ridden, with the other being Sidewinder at Hershey Park. It's got some pretty good helixes. The transitions aren't great on this ride. Those old era transitions aren't too smooth, but it's still a solid ride. You get some decent airtime moments. Those little pre-drops are actually kind of fun. You definitely have some good airtime towards the end. The ending's pretty fun. That big drop into like that tunnel. It's a fairly long ride. It's pretty smooth, fairly intense for mine train. It's overall a good family coaster, but nothing too spectacular. Alright, so coming in the number 9 spot is Carolina CYCLONE. It's the air looping coaster at the park that opened up back in 1980, and this was actually the first coaster to ever feature 4 inversions. So that's pretty cool. And I definitely like the color scheme with this ride, the alternating yellow, orange, and blue track with the blue supports looks really cool. It's a really photogenic ride. The layout's okay. It's got a decent drop, the 2 vertical loops, and it's actually got this pretty decent airtime pop. Then it turned to the corkscrews, which are solid, then a helix into the brake run, so it's kind of standard. But it's actually decently intense. It's pretty smooth. The inversions are overall pretty fun. You get some good hang time on the corkscrews, and it's got some good little airtime moments. And I'd definitely say it's probably my second favorite air looper over Anaconda, but behind Tennessee Tornado. So it's overall a fun little ride, but nothing too great. And so coming at the number 8 spot is HURLER, the International Coasters Incorporated wooden coaster at the park. And this is kind of an okay ride. I rode it back in 2017, and I just found it to be pretty boring. Not really much airtime. It was kind of shaky, but it was pretty smooth overall, but it just didn't really do much. And I rode it again this year. I definitely found it to be quite a bit rougher. There are some moments of jackhammering on those turns, especially on that first turn. I think it was like towards the bottom of the first drop, and some of the other turns. But the airtime was better, but it's still kind of just not a great ride. It's kind of dumb. I mean, it's decent. It's the only major wooden coaster at the park, so it's got that going for it. But it's just not a great roller coaster overall. I wouldn't mind if they replaced it or converted it into an RMC at all. So, no, it's not a bad coaster, but it's not great. Alright, so coming at the number 7 spot is going to be Flying COBRAS, and this was actually my first ever VEKOMA boomerang. I definitely think it's the better of the two traditional ones. Much better than Flashback at Six Flags New England. It's overall smoother and the restraints are better. And it's a pretty fun ride. I think boomerangs are good. They're pretty intense. The drops are fun. The inversions are overall solid. It's definitely cool flying through that station really fast. And I like the color scheme on this one. The trains look cool. And the restraints are great. So it's overall a pretty smooth, intense ride. Just pretty fun. It's cool going backwards. The drops are fun. It's nothing too special. It's just a boomerang, but it's overall pretty fun ride. I think these can get overhated. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Carolina or Flying COBRAS. Alright, so coming at the number 6 spot is NIGHTHAWK, the VEKOMA Flying Dutchman coaster at the park. And I rode this coaster in 2017. I think I rode it toward the back, and I just hated it. It was really, 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 really shaky and rough. I just did not enjoy it. It's still pretty intense, but not great. Then I rode it actually in the front row this year, and it was a much smoother experience. This is a pretty good ride. It's, pretty similar to Batwing for most of the ride. It's got that cool flying experience. It's smooth, intense, the cool out of fly elements and the inversions. The drops on the vertical loop's good, some good turns. I still was not a fan of those corkscrews. You still get like kind of headbanging almost on those, so they're not very good. It's really my only complaint with this ride is the corkscrews are just not fun. But it's overall a pretty good ride. I like the color scheme. It definitely looks nice for a relocated coaster. If you guys didn't know, this used to be Stealth at California's Great America. But it's overall a pretty fun flying coaster, and it's definitely my favorite VEKOMA at the park. Definitely a lot better than it was when I rode it back in 2017. Alright, so coming in the number 5 spot is going to be VORTEX, and this was actually my first ever stand-up coaster, and it's a pretty good ride. I do think it's quite overhated. It's not the worst ride in the park by any stretch. Yeah, it is a bit rough. Like, some people said there were some moments of headbanging, especially on that corkscrew. Some of those turns in the first half do give a bit of headbanging, but it's not the end of the world. It is fairly intense. You got some good inversions. Definitely some good positives on some of those turns and just all the elements in general. It's definitely weird being on a stand-up, because this was my first ever one, so it's kind of a unique experience. It's got a fun drop. It's just a cool experience overall. It's a pretty fun ride. Fairly smooth, intense. It's kind of short and a little rough, but it's overall a pretty good B&M coaster. I definitely think it's good for the park. Alright, so coming out the number 4 spot is going to be Intimidator, the B&M hypercoaster in the park. And this is an okay ride. I've actually noticed during my 2 trips to Carowinds, the turns were actually running a lot later, so the airtime was definitely a lot stronger. Like when I got some of those front rides on it, I actually get some pretty solid floater airtime on each hill. The drop's fun. All the hills on the first half are good. The turnaround's fun. You get some nice, or I guess a little bit of force, but not much, between airtime hills. The ending is kind of dumb. You don't really get much airtime or much force, but it's still a decent ride. Pretty smooth. The restraints are nice. The theming's good. It's a fairly long ride. It's kind of a parking lot coaster, but it's pretty fun. So it's overall a solid ride, but not too great. But I definitely do think it's probably the weakest B&M hypercoaster that I've ridden out of the 3. Alright, so coming at the number 3 spot's actually the new for 2019 coaster at the park, COPPERHEAD Strike, the MACK Rides multi-launch coaster. And this is a really fun ride. It definitely exceeded expectations. It's fairly intense at points, like some of the turns in the second half. You get some really good whip and positives. You get some good hang time on those inversions. Some good airtime moments. The launches aren't great, but you get some cool theming. It's a fairly long ride. It's really smooth. It's just a lot of fun. I really like the trains on this ride. The MACK restraints are great. It's just really fun. And it's all around a solid ride. Nothing too great, but it's definitely a good, solid launch coaster. And I'd say it's definitely a good addition to the park. Alright, so coming to the number 2 spot's coaster, it might actually surprise you. This is Fury 325. I know most people are probably expecting this to be the number 1. And yeah, this is actually my number 2 at the park. Don't get me wrong, this ride's really fun. It's got some really fun bank turns, some great airtime moments. It's fast paced. It's a fairly long ride, smooth. It's got an awesome treble clef into that hive dive under the tunnel. It's got great interaction with the entrance. It's a really photogenic ride. It's got a decent first drop, not great. But it's just not the most intense ride ever. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of it. Definitely is very fun. It's one of the better coasters I've ridden, but it might be a bit overrated. But still, definitely one of the better rides at the park. I do think it was a great addition to the park back in 2015. It was still a great ride, just not quite my favorite ride in the park. Alright, so coming in at the number 1 spot is the B&M INVERT AFTERBURN. This is just an awesome ride. This is definitely the most intense coaster in the park. That's kind of why I think it's the best ride in the park. I just love super intense rides. This ride is crazy, forceful, whippy, fast-paced. Every inversion gives great intensity. The vertical leap's fun, the Immelman's fun, the 0G's great, the Batwing, let's say, the Quark's too solid. The drop's not that great, but you do actually have a nice moment of airtime on this ride. That floater airtime hill gets a nice foot chopper, nice bit of, nice little bit of floaty airtime, and you have actually have a really intense helix at the end. It's a bit of a short ride, but it's just so fast-paced and intense. And it's overall just more consistent than Fury, and it's more intense than Fury, and I think that's why I like it more. This might be kind of controversial, but I do like Afterburn a bit more than Fury. But yeah, Afterburn is definitely my favorite coaster in the park. And so that'll be about it for this video. My top 10 roller coasters at Carowinds. This park definitely has a pretty solid lineup of coasters. As you can see, it's definitely a fun park overall. It's just my opinion. It's fine if you disagree. It's just what I thought. So that'll be about it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.